This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here are your hosts, Ryan Alford and Chris Hansen.
Hello and welcome to Vibe Science. We're always got those good vibes. We're keeping the good vibes right now. I'm joined by Chris Hansen, my co-host. I'm Ryan Alford, and we're excited. This is the first time these words have come out of my mouth, at least other than pre-episode. We're joined by Jaiya, award-winning Somatic Sexologist and author of Your Blueprint for Pleasure. Jaiya, welcome to the show.
Such a pleasure to be here.
I like pleasure. So, there's a lot of pain in the world. So I'm ready to talk some pleasure. And
it's a really good thing. And I'm so glad you're willing to have the conversation because, I think we've made pleasure such a taboo thing and we need to stop doing that. Pain's okay to feel, but oh my God forbid pleasure. But I'm here to really, I think I'm here in the world to say that pleasure is okay. Pleasure is good for you. And let's have some more of it.
I know. And I had never said the word somatic sexologist. I've now said them 3 or 4 times here, both pre-episode and during the episode. I've got a lot to learn. I'm excited. I've got my pen out. So, I'm going to be listening back, I'm sure. And I'm excited. I do think it is strange. And, here on the show, we're trying to, wellness is mind, body, and spirit. And I think that we believe in all these we really want to make alternative approaches, not so alternative, just the choices, And so to your point, it is strange how we make certain things taboo.
Yeah. And that pleasure is a mind, body, spirit, like it is the whole gamut of all of it. It's not just, people think about it just in the body, but really it is the whole part of our wellness.
Yeah, 100%. Let's just start. I know we're going to talk a lot about the blueprint, but before that, I think it's important because there's not a lot of education. There is, but there's probably not a lot of talk about it, of exactly what a somatic sexologist is and does. Let's start there, Jaiya.
Mm-hmm. So a somatic sexologist is someone who works with sexuality, not just from the point of the mind, like a sex therapist would work, talking to you about your emotions and what you're thinking and more from the mind aspect. A somatic sexologist is the body. So somatic means in the body of the body. And so we're really looking at sexuality, and sex is something that happens in the body. So we're looking at it from more of a holistic point of view of, well, what's the body actually saying? And where are the body and the mind not in congruence with each other? And we're looking at that whole picture of a being in their sexuality. I think you said something really interesting too, which is around the education of sexuality and that we don't talk about it. I ask audiences all over the world, how did you get your sex education? Or did you get a sex education? That's usually the first question. Did you get a sex education? And a couple of people will raise their hands in the audience. And this could be 1,000 people that I'm talking to. And it's always shocking to me that so few of us think that we got a sex education. We did get a sex education. We just got a bad sex education. We got the sex education of don't talk about it. Don't do it. Sex is this one little thing that we do to procreate. It's like, no. We haven't even touched the surface of what's possible with sex and what this thing sex actually is.
Yeah. And so here we are. Breaking down barriers on Vibe Science. That's what it's all about. We'll get the education out there. One story at a time. Jaiya, since we set the table for what you are and do at a high level, let's do the same with your background. What led you to this path?
Well, you know how when you're young and you're like, I want to be such and such when I grow up? I either wanted to be an opera singer on Broadway or, somewhere around the world, or I wanted to be like Dr. Ruth. Somewhere I had seen Dr. Ruth when I was little, and I said, I want to be like that lady. I want to talk about sex. That would be really, really cool. But I told my parents I was going to go into fertility medicine instead because, I grew up Catholic, super, super religious, super rural Ohio girl. on a farm, you know, and I want to be a sexologist or an opera singer. So I was a little bit strange for where I grew up. But, you know, I think it was just, it's some people just come in with gifts in this lifetime. And I was erotically gifted, we'll say, coming into life. I was the one who was like, let me tell you where babies really come from. And let me show you this other cool thing. And then when I was a teenager, I wanted to study tantric sex. So at the age of 16, I started like getting my hands on every book that I could about tantra and sacred sexuality, and learning everything that I could from the sneaky library in rural Ohio. I would order books.
That you either had the luckiest or the scaredest boyfriends in high school, or girlfriends. I don't know. Whatever it was.
I think by me, and at that age, because I knew so much. Even at 15, I was educating people and couldn't wait till I turned 18 to do this as a profession.
Yeah, it's not what you say, like in, because imagine now, like, what is it? What first grade or third grade? What do you want to be when you grow up? Like you said, that go over like a broken record with the teacher.
Yeah, a sexologist. A what?
Exactly. I want to be a marine biologist. I want to be a what? Jaiya, we're gonna have to talk to you in the office. And it is a fine line. We joke, it's like, what's appropriate for kids or not, but whether or not it's appropriate for children, it is a damn shame that we taboo it, make it such a foreign concept. I don't necessarily want my 7-year-old worried or thinking about sex at all. But my 14-year-old, they need to learn the right way. They need to understand these things and know the time and the place. And, nothing makes it more foreign than taboo than if we make it that way.
Yeah, exactly. And if we make it taboo and bad and wrong, once people come sexually of age, they think they're bad and wrong. And that's where we get all the sexual shame. And there's age appropriate sex education, at 7, teaching consent. Teaching, like, hey, this is my body and these are my body boundaries. And these are things your body might start experiencing at 11 or 12, as you start to get a little older. And then at 14, well, what is this thing, sex? And how do you make it safe? And when do you know that you're ready? Like these conversations, and to have them so relaxed, then we send the message that this is something that's natural. This is something normal and not anything to be ashamed of as we get older and the time is appropriate.
I know. And maybe, this show and others and stuff, but what do we probably think and talk about this a lot being in the industry. What do we have to do to make that better? How do we knock down these walls in a more broader sense?
Yeah, I think that the first place is to look at our own internalized shame, conditioning, and programming that we have gotten as a result of a sex negative culture, as a result of a lack of sex education, where we're not educated, we have ignorance. So how can we educate ourselves so that we're not ignorant? How do we also understand that sexuality is part of our wellness? I think that's and in our longevity, I think it's a really important key piece that we're missing, is that overall health is related to our sexual health. If you start having erectile dysfunction challenges, that can be an indicator of a heart challenge or circulation challenge or the health of your blood vessels. So there's a lot of different things that we don't see as okay, well, if your libido is low, that could be an indicator again of something in our overall wellness. So how do we start to break down the walls? One is to redefine sex. What is this thing, sex? Redefine who we are as sexual beings. Who are we as erotic beings? Eros is life force. If we don't have Eros running through us, this life force, this sexual energy running through us, we're on our way to our grave, because the body now goes, I'm not procreating. And if I'm not procreating, then I can go to the grave.
Yeah.
So, our sex hormones are our youth hormones. And there's inner work to be done, I think, for all of us in unraveling the conditioning and programming we get about who we are and what sex is.
100%. So now that I got the serious stuff out of the way, too serious, we're not going to solve the world's problems in one day, but let's start educating on pleasure. Talking with Jaiya, author of Blueprint for Pleasure and founder, creator of the Erotic Blueprint breakthrough. Talk to us about the blueprint, exactly what that is, what you do, and, what it all means.
So this links back to who we are erotically and unraveling some of that conditioning and programming, especially based on gender and how we think about our sexuality and our orientation and identity. So there are 5 erotic blueprints. I'm curious which ones you are. I've been sitting here kind of trying to figure out what both of you and Chris might be. Did you take the quiz? Do you know? Do you know what your types are?
I know, but I'm going to do it right after this.
Okay. Homework for both of you. Take the quiz, find out what type you are. And let's see if I might be able to peg you throughout this conversation.
Yeah, you're gonna have to guess you're gonna have to guess by the end.
Guess by the end.
And then we'll take the quizzes, we'll DM it, and we'll promise we'll mention it on social and stuff. But then we'll have you back on, and we can talk more.
Okay, cool.
Interpretation.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're someone who, in their arousal, can look like, well, I'm not normal. That might be something that they might say in their shadow because they necessarily don't like to be touched all the time. So they can have an orgasm from across the room. If anybody saw the Sex, Love, and Goop show on Netflix, I demonstrate some of the energetic orgasms and things like that can be had from an energetic standpoint. They can have multidimensional sex. I mean, this is where I start to get into, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg of what sex is, because when we look at these blueprints, we're redefining it. And so they're turned on by, consciousness, spirituality. This is where we get into Tantra. We get into a deeper level of intimacy that is happening on multi-levels, not just in this realm. So we can get really far out there about the energetic. But the energetic is going to be most affected in their sexual health, because they're so sensitive. They're so sensitive, and their superpower is that sensitivity, but also can be, they're turned off by that sensitivity. Too much, too quick, too fast is going to just short circuit them, and they'll dissociate from their body. So that's an energetic. Yeah. So sensual is the next one. And a sensual is someone who's turned on by all of their senses being ignited. So this is touch, tasting something delicious. Those of you who can see me, my body language even changed a lot. And it's that environment that's beautiful. It's what we think of, a lot of times sex therapists will say light candles and put on romantic music and a hot bath. And, but that doesn't work for every single person, that's just that certain blueprint, the sensual blueprint. In the shadow side, the sensual gets caught up in their head, has a hard time thinking about what's happening in between their legs, because all the stuff that's happening in their brain is distracting them from having great sex. So that's pretty much the sensual. And then the sexual is someone who's turned on by what we think of as sex in our culture: penetration, orgasms, nudity, getting right to it. Let's get to the orgasm, and then everything is right in the world. We have had sex. It is so good. So, but that is a limited definition of sex, and that's the shadow side of the sexual, is that there's a very limited definition. And if everybody isn't having erections and orgasms and all those things, then we're not having successful sex. But the superpowers, they bring the joy and the fun to the sex. So, sex is easy. It's like pizza, it's all good no matter where you get it.
So 3 types. So how many? We have 5 or 3?
We have 5. 5 of them. Yeah. Okay. So the next one is the kinky, and the kinky's turned on by taboo, and that's whatever is taboo for you. So that could be, psychological play of submission and dominance. That could be more of a sensation like spanking or impact. It could be a combination of both of those things. The shadow side is deep shame. Why am I like this? Why do I like these things that are outside the box or edgy? And then the superpower is endless creativity. I could learn forever in the realm of the kink realm and never learn all the fun rope ties and fun games to play and all the things that there are to explore. And then the final one is the shapeshifter. And this is someone who shapeshifts amongst all of them. They have all of them as part of their sexual repertoire. The shadow side of the shapeshifter is shapeshifting to please other people. The positive side is that they're amazing lovers because they can speak any language. If these were languages, then the shapeshifter is fluent in all of them.
I love it. I'm sitting here going through my mind. I don't know, you start thinking through where you think you fall and where you are and crossing over and all those things. So which one are you?
What am I? I'm a shapeshifter because this is my work. So I've cultivated that. Yeah. But my default is energetic sexual. And as soon as my energetic feels a spark of energetic connection, I will go straight to sexual. I'm kind of like a put it in kind of girl after the energetic connection is there. So let's get straight to the, like, I have literally said, chop, come on, get it up. Let's go to my partner who is not a sexual. And he's very sensual. And so I can't approach him that way. And that was one of the reasons why we had such disconnect in our sex life, is because I was approaching him, assuming he's also sexual before, I really cultivated these blueprints.
So I guess, your book talks about all of these, and, you start, because it helps to know, like you said, with your current partner, like to know where you stand and where they are. I mean, it's like, again, back to this opening the lines of communication, with your partner, and also knowing where these things are. Cause it's like as I heard you talk about it, I'm sitting here going, people don't ever talk about like this stuff to one another. Like, do they? Like what, like
they
partners?
Don't. And I'm so surprised that partners don't talk about it. Part of it's the shame. Part of it's, if we grew up saying, don't talk about it. We grew up with certain beliefs and conditionings around sex. We don't. But what's surprising to me is a lot of partners are afraid to talk up to each other. Like especially kinky partners, if they haven't revealed that they're kinky, it's a big coming out because of the shame. And what's interesting always to me is how much they're actually on the same page. They just haven't been talking to each other about what they wanted or what they desired because they felt too ashamed to have that conversation. So I think we really need to create safety. We need to create safety for each other to be able to talk about sex. And it can be fun. It doesn't have to be so serious. Like, sit down, have a fun dinner and say, I met this crazy girl named Jaiya I heard on this podcast, and, blame it all on me. I always say that.
I'm going to blame it on Jaiya. You brought up the show. Jaiya is one of the stars on Netflix's Sex, Love, and Goop. How was the show? Talk to us about it, and what can people expect that may not have had it on their playlist?
Yeah, I loved it. It's my favorite TV show I've done, and I've done a lot of TV over my career for the last 3 decades, and I feel like they really captured my work. It was so amazing to work with the couple that I worked with. They were so great and so willing. We did everything you see in the show happened over 3 days. And, of course, it gets edited and cut down to look like a little less. But in 3 days to have such a radical transformation in the couple I got to work with, and to see that he had a mask on his blueprint, which is something interesting to talk about, too, is that a lot of men have a sexual mask because we're told that men should be sexual in our culture. They should be the sexual blueprint. They should just be ready to go, want sex all the time, want to get to the penetration. And I think we do a lot of disservice to men because in our research, we've seen, I make a pie graph with my fingers here.
Yes, I noticed that. The research of the circle. Yes.
In our research, we've seen that actually men are everything across the board. They are not just the sexual blueprint. It leans a little bit sexual, but for the majority of people taking our quiz, we're seeing that men have all the blueprints. And so we see in the show, and I think this is a little bit of a spoiler. You guys can fast forward if you haven't seen it. But, he has a sexual mask on and he turns out to be a different blueprint. And that was a really profound show for me, was watching that happen, because now we were in a very different conversation about them as a couple.
How do you counsel couples or people that you have these talks with, how to break down the walls and to start these discussions? I think back to the one of the movies was like, we're in the safe tree, we're having a safe cover, I thought we were in the tree of trust, starts like sharing too many secrets, but how do you counsel people to break down these walls with one another?
One of my favorite exercises, I'll just give everybody an exercise who's listening, is called a dyad. And it's a communication, not a conversation. And I think that that's one of the differences, is that we try to have conversations and not an effective communication. And so a dyad is an opportunity to really understand your partner. I think we also try to be in agreement with our partners instead of understanding with our partners. And we all know we want to be seen, felt, heard, and understood. And that's another place that brings wellness. When we're seen, felt, heard, and understood, we feel better. We feel well emotionally. when we're seeking to agree, that's where we get into challenges, because my reality may not be your reality. And I may think you take out the garbage none, and you think you take out the garbage every other day, you know, like, and we get in these big arguments and fights about that conversation. It's never about the garbage, by the way. And so a dyad is simply a prompt that you would have. Like, might be something like, tell me what turns you on. Tell me something that turns you on that you'd like to try tonight. So that we're seeking to understand the turn-ons of our partner. Tell me something that makes you feel safe in bed. And you take one of those things and you repeat it over and over again, and you don't respond to it. You just say thank you if you understand. Mm-hmm. So tell me something that turns you on. I'm going to do it with you, Ryan, right now. Tell me something that turns you on.
When my wife wears like revealing clothing.
Thank you. Yeah. Chris, tell me something that turns you on.
I would say like a girl like giving me a massage and like feeding me, like cooking for me and like nurturing me.
Thank you. I just found out a bunch about your blueprints and who you are as erotic people. I mean, even just the way you respond. Yeah.
I was pretty quick, I thought, you know?
I like that's good though that you're quick. You know what you like, bro.
Yeah. And my wife knows that. Like, so, you know, she knows how to. I
like that too. I like revealing clothing too.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Jaiya, I mean, I'm glad you asked that question. And because look, I'm married for 8 years, been together 10, very happily married. Probably don't talk about these things enough. I'll admit that. I think we have a good and healthy sexual relationship, and we do communicate, but I don't think we take it to the level that you're doing. I can be transparent about that. And then Chris, who's a single guy in Miami, Florida, you know, I'm going to open it up for Chris, you know, because it's an interesting topic. You know, I feel like having a wife that we have good flow of communication, I can take some of these tips and activate them. It's interesting for like single people, you know, how they do these things. I mean, it's one thing if you're dating someone, but like the first day, like, you know, I'm just wondering what your blueprint is. And I don't know, like, Chris, have at it.
Just add it into the what's your horoscope sign and what's your love language. That's
absolutely.
I was thinking I would feel pretty comfortable, I think, just saying like, hey, what turns you on? What makes you, and even feeling safe. I think that's a huge component of sex, right? Like,
yep.
You don't feel safe. You're closed off.
Right.
So I could easily ask that, but I think kind of what you said, Jaiya, like I'm an energy spark type of person. Like tons of beautiful women down here, but maybe this is age and maturity and stuff like that. But you can be beautiful, but if I don't energetically feel a pull towards you, like I don't care anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that also points to being a demisexual. Like you need to have connection before you can, you know, connect erotically at this point, you know, in your life where you've moved in your life. And that could be maturity as well. And also where you're wanting, what you're wanting. I hear that you're an energetic sensual a lot, but you also said you were turned on by seeing something sexy. So that sells me a little bit of sexual in there. So I think you're an energetic, you lead with your energetic, super sensual. And then once you're turned on, you go to a shapeshifter. So I'm really curious what your quiz says. And then in dating, you know, if people aren't willing to have the conversation and this is really important to you to be able to have the conversation about sex, then if that person closes down when you start to have that conversation, you know that that person may not, like, this is what's so cool about being in that dating place is, you know, that person may not be a good match for you right from the get-go if they're unwilling to have the conversation about sex. You know, maybe not like first date. I would, because I'm me and I know who I am. And like, I'd be like, okay, what's your erotic blueprint? What's your Enneagram? You know, what's your attachment style? I want to know all these things about you to just see, like, I don't want to waste anybody's time. I know who I am, so secure in who I am. And if you can't have a conversation about sex with me, then I would not be interested in dating. But that's me. And so if you're more shy and laid back, maybe you want somebody who's a little bit more shy and laid back. So I think this all stems from, if you know who you are and you're dating and you know what you want in relationship and you're really clear on that, then this helps in the dating pool. It helps you go right away, like, okay, I'm not going to waste my time there because I know that that's not a good match for me because I'm so secure in who I am and I love myself so much that I'm unwilling to waste anybody else's time.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you nailed it. I got a question, but that last part just got me. So I'm like, I do think part of the problem is people don't know what they are or aren't transparent with what they are, which then leads to, maybe the difficulty in discussing it. They're not maybe self-aware enough or know what they have put enough thought into what they like. And I think it's back to what you said, because I think about even previous relationships. I've been divorced and, I think about what I have to assume was the trauma around the fear of talking about things like that I don't know. I'm just bringing up memories. Like things are making sense as you talk to like relationships that I've had.
Yeah, I love that about this work, that when we go on the journey of sexual awakening, we start having all kinds of aha moments about why past relationships didn't work, around our own insecurities, and I think the journey of sexual awakening is one of the final frontiers of personal growth and development in us. And the reason being is because we have so much shame, we don't talk about it, that then it's like the last place where we look, but it's a place where I think we get the most benefit because we have to look at those big things. And when we're in relationship with another person, and sex is something that also happens with ourselves. It's not something that we necessarily need to have another person for. It's something that we can do all by ourselves and in self-pleasure and feeding our own erotic blueprint in the way that we touch our own bodies. And when we get to know ourselves even better and we love ourselves, I think it helps us to let go of some of the insecurities that we would have when we were younger or without that self-exploration, that journey of self-exploration, where then we compromise. And compromise, one of my favorite mentors that I had, he said, compromise is resentment 50-50, never compromise. Always find shifter synergy in relationship. And so as soon as you notice yourself starting to compromise, I think that's a flag for, wait a minute, where am I afraid to lose love? Where am I afraid to lose pleasure? Where am I afraid to lose of loss? That, I can feel myself and recognize that there's a place beyond all of this that I am. And that place that I am beyond all of this is infinitely resourced and loved.
I think the bigger that you became, Jaiya, and this book became, that we would decrease the divorce rate by a minimum of 50%, because I think it's not the only reason. There's a lot more to relationships than sex, but I do think, here's what I know. When my wife and I are on the same vibe, the same wavelength, the sex is great, the communication's great, and a lot of things are on that. And when you're on that plane with them and you're able to be in this zone, you don't think about other women or other men. You don't think, like, you're so in the zone, pun intended, or it's like that I don't know. I just don't think if you're on that plane together that you can work through a lot of things. You won't venture outside of that. Not only, I'm not just talking about cheating, but I just mean like everything. You tend to agree more. You tend to get along better. You're communicating better. If we could get people, understanding these things and communicating about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's astounding to me how short longevity is in relationship and how many couples really struggle. And I mean, I get to peer into people's bedrooms doing what I do. I'm peering into some of the darkest areas, the places where we have the most shadows, the places where we have the most shame, affairs, transgressions, things we've done that we regret in our sexuality, even though we were young and ignorant. I think we don't escape that because of the shame, because of the repression about sexuality. We don't escape those things. And if we did talk about it, and we had the tools, I think in schools should teach the tools just to have like a relationship, just like we have home ec class. Like if we had relationship class and we have forgotten how to love each other, and sex is part of loving each other. And we've forgotten how to be in that expression. I think there was a time once when we knew how to be in community and how to love each other and how to see each other. And we've lost some of that. And so I hope through this work, through this book, to help all of us regain that wisdom and that knowledge.
Talking with Jaiya, author of Your Blueprint for Pleasure. Jaiya, maybe let's do something for the audience. Obviously, read the book, sure, get on your stuff. They can learn a ton of exercises, techniques, all of those things. But is there anything like that you'd say, like, is there something that would blow people's mind, something that's fairly easy to explain or something like that, that's an exercise in some one of these things, touch, feel, I don't know, rituals that we could share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think anatomy is a place where we don't have a lot of education, and a very quick one is just on the clitoris. I mean, if you can see me right now, the clitoris has legs, it has a shaft, and it has a head. And I think that we forget that there's all these parts of the clitoris. So a very easy, simple thing is to get in touch with the whole area of the clitoris. And a technique that can do that is by pressing into the pelvis from the sides where the labia is, pressing with a lot of pressure while another finger stimulates the external parts of the clitoris. So this is a sexual blueprint technique. I could blueprintify it and make it for all of the different blueprints, but this is one sexual blueprint technique. Just press into the labia with 2 fingers and with another finger stroking the shaft and the head of the clitoris. Just that can be a game changer.
That's a game changer right there. I'm making a timestamp. 31 minutes, 54 seconds to come back.
It's funny because I think of this, and I've researched these things, but as a young man, where was I getting that advice? Maxim magazine. Literally, right. It's like that was our sex education. You're in high school. They teach you how to put a condom on a banana, right?
Right.
Stupid shit. It's more sex protection. And then, as a 16-year-old guy, like my parents definitely weren't having an open conversation that wasn't extremely awkward.
Right.
I remember one of them. So weird. But stuff like this, where like that took you 10 seconds to explain. And that can have such a big impact, I would imagine, on people's intimacy and connection and experience.
Yeah, and the amount of pleasure, because when you're touching the whole clitoral structure, it responds to pressure. The legs respond to pressure, and the head can respond to friction. That can be too much for some people, depending on the blueprint. And so if you want to make that energetic, you just do it hovering over and you tease over the clitoris. So if this is the clitoris, I'm holding my finger up, and then I got like a little centimeter in between where you're teasing and you're looking in your person's eyes and you're breathing together. Now you've got it energetic with the same exact technique. Make it sensual, add some oil, do some petting before you, in between doing that more sexual technique. So you've got more of a broad stroke and you've got some music on and something delicious that smells good. Maybe you feed them a piece of chocolate while you're doing. So just like to go through all the blueprints, and Shapeshifter, of course, you mix that all together.
I love it. We are helping the world one technique at a time. Yes. Chris, I've kind of, taken over here because I've, making all my notes. As a single guy, any specific questions for Jaiya?
Damn, dude, I have a lot. I could go all day. I don't know how much I want to put myself on blast, though. We have some listeners.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, actually, something that I've been kind of exposed to in the last year is the energetic ties of sex and how we energetically intertwine with people. Mm-hmm. Speak on that a little bit. I'm curious about that. And that, I will say, I think at this point in my life, I'm definitely more discretionary, selective. Like I said, the energy, when I'm 16 and you're a good looking girl, yeah, I want to take you out. I don't care what your personality's like. At this point, and I feel like I am kind of choosy with who I want to be intimate with, because I think of, well, you have these energetic ties with people once you're intimate with them and they're there forever. Can you kind of touch on that or explain that to me?
Yeah, I mean, we all have a biofield, an energetic field. And within that energetic field, when we are making love with someone, our biofields are also making love. So you can make love on a level that's not just physical. So that could be, people have heard of the chakras, maybe, and especially for wellness. I mean, even just the technique I gave for the clitoris, all the things that does for the pelvic floor and getting blood flow and allowing things to be more supple, but also on an energetic, there's a meridian that runs through there. And so that affects your neurochemicals. You're producing all kinds of neurohormones, your own endogenous pharmacy when you're starting to get clitoral touch that's repetitive over and over again. So, but coming back to your question, because I know you guys are wellness, so I want to keep bringing it back, to that idea that this sex and pleasure are so good for you. And so from a biofield standpoint, with intention, and if the more and more you get in touch with energetic fields, some people can see them, some people can feel them. We can measure them with devices. I talk about that in the book, about how we can measure the biofields of our organs. And so when you're making love, and especially if you're energetic, you're more sensitive to those biofields. And your biofield will start to merge with another person's biofield. And that's when sex gets really, really good. I mean, that's the ultimate intimacy to me. I'm also speaking from my energetic point of view. The ultimate intimacy for me is when our physical bodies are merged and our energetic bodies are merged. And there's multiple energetic bodies. That could be a whole other episode just talking about energetic sex. But these fields merge. And so to be aware of that, if you're really energetically sensitive, of whose field you're merging with and is their biofield a healthy biofield? Because that may affect your own wellness.
That's what
if you're pointing to that.
I'm hearing more negative about be careful who you are intimate with, because you can pick up their traumas and their negative energies. And that's what I think now. I worry about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, do I want to absorb your shit? Because I'm in a good place right now.
And that's where energetic hygiene comes into play. And we don't talk about that sexually. What is energetic hygiene? Well, that means like, I just had sex with you. My biofield merged with you. Now I want to make sure that we are no longer merged. So I'm not taking on traumas or things that were in your field. And as a person, Chris, I just strike you as like a person who has your heart open and cares. And as a person who cares and is empathic, you will take on things naturally. And so I think it is something to have awareness about, but not so much awareness that it keeps you from connecting. Not so much awareness that it has you afraid to have sex with someone, because you can do energetic hygiene afterwards. Just learn how to do energetic hygiene and cleanse that from like your cord system. Cord cutting. There's certain like camphor can be really good if you burn some camphor around your energetic field, sage, salt baths, Epsom salt baths. These are things that get your feet on the ground, grounding. These are things that can help you with some of the energetic hygiene. But don't miss out on the beautiful thing that is energy merging with people, because that is the best sex an energetic can have. Full oneness, because you've merged.
I love it.
You know what, Jaiya? I'll say this. So you talk to and you have this frame of mind, like with sex or people that may do or be in the field as a profession. And you think of them as being, I don't know, maybe a little airy. And I don't mean like airheaded, but whatever. But you're smart as hell. Like, I just sense this, like I feel like you could like take these gifts and they could cross a lot of boundaries here with like your knowledge and your approach and all that. That's the highest compliment I can give you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. I think I have dedicated my life to this study and this taking sexuality out of the shadows. And in that, I've gathered a lot of knowledge, let's study all of it. No shame. Like, I could go kinky, or we can talk, super out there, multidimensional, energetic merging sex, or we can talk about clitorises. Like, I'm game for all of it.
Yes. So talk to me, like, I always like giving tips, tricks, and all those things. So I'm kind of coming back to that a little bit. But in this one, what are maybe like innovations that are out there? Like, what are some of the newest, I don't know, things that are assisting in sex, or, you know, all the stuff that we're talking about?
So, I mean, we can go anywhere from innovation from just our wisdom and knowledge. I mean, psychedelics, I think, are a place where we can innovate our understanding of sexuality, especially around some of the things I'm talking about. If we don't have access to energetic sex, suddenly, all of a sudden, we can see a biofield and we can interact with that biofield. And so I think that is an innovation as we're having this new renaissance of psychedelic medicine. And that's also a place of healing trauma and wellness around our sexuality. So I think that ties into many things, as we have informed relationship with these master teachers and master plants, but also the molecules that we have. And there are people always creating new molecules. And then also I see us with tech, AI, and how we can go into virtual reality realms with sexuality. My hesitation with some of that is losing this physical connection. So one of the ways that my partner and I, when we first played with VR, he had the VR goggles on, and then I was simulating what he was, I had watched what he was watching, and then I was simulating what he was watching physically so that we could tie together his physical body with the VR experience, which was a really cool experience to play with.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So you went down the supplement route. Like, are there, you know, in what you do as a sexologist, is it like, as part of your, I know you're not a doctor, you know, like recommending like pharmaceutical things. I just mean more like, you know, back to like things that, I don't know, you
like
might recommend to couples. Yeah, those kind of things.
Ashwagandha.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super into, so I like looking at things from the yin and the yang and the three treasures in terms of Chinese medicine. And some of these herbs you already mentioned, you know, ashwagandha, but like the yang things, like I love deer antler. And my favorite recipe for testosterone boosting that I like to make at home for myself is ghee with colostrum and deer antler and a little bit of some kind of sweetener. It could be stevia if you're doing like low glycemic and you want to keep it keto. Or you could go with like a maple syrup or something like that if you need more sugars in your diet. So, but something simple. And then I can throw in like pearl powder for skin, or radiance, or like, but jing slingers, they're amazing. If you don't know the jing slingers, this is one of their recipes that I just absolutely adore. So Schisandra berry, I really love, mixed with pearl powder and some of the more yin herbs that I find those really nurturing. I can tend to go too yang, but then that takes my sexual blueprint too high, and it can kind of create challenges with my partner and I. So it's really interesting, like, to be attracted to certain herbs and then go, no, you know what? I need some yin, and go with the pearl powder and some things that, like, if for those of you who don't know, there's three treasures. There's Jing, Qi, and Shen. And I love the candle analogy that is used. So like Jing is the wick and the wax, Shen is the light that comes off the candle, and Qi is the flame. And so I love more of the Jing tonic herbs for the reason of getting that wick and that wax, because if you don't have that, you don't have a flame and you don't have light. So especially with sexuality. And I think too, I mean, there's things about ejaculation, not ejaculation. Maybe that's something we can talk about, but
yeah,
and libido and herbs for libido and semen retention. Like I get it. I kind of tie all this together when I'm talking about it. Yeah.
Semen retention is something I'm seeing a lot too being talked about.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that? What do you, because of course you have the internet guys like, that's bad, bro. It causes prostate cancer, which I don't believe that either. But you know, some of these guys are like, you know, you should retain your semen. You have more testosterone, keep that creative energy in you, like keep your sexual energy. Speak on that a little bit. Because when I've talked to people about it, they look at me like I'm fucking crazy, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so there's different points of view. And I think it also depends on where your biochemistry is at in the moment. You know, where are you at in life? And where, you know, as you get older, I think that practicing that can be really, really great. There is some research that does say that, like, ejaculation is good for your prostate and to cleanse it. And so there's that point of view as well that I want to put in there. So I think of it too, if we're talking about Tantra, they say as long as you're transmuting the sexual energy out of the semen, you are not losing life force. And it's good to ejaculate, but you first need to learn how to draw the sexual energy, the life force energy out of the semen. And that happens through transmutation breaths. Since you all like tips, quick transmutation breath. It's just a deep breath in, drawing the sexual energy up the spine, drawing it all the way up the spine and creating hydraulic pressure by contracting your pelvic floor and your belly button towards your spine and dropping your chin back, and then holding the breath and holding those contractions. Take a sniff, bring it to the top of your head, and then exhale it back down. That's a very simple transmutation breath to start to draw the sexual energy out. Now, if you're looking at Taoist sexuality, they say that you're losing your chi, you're losing life force through the jing and chi through the ejaculate. And so that can be true for some people. I have had clients, they ejaculate and they lose energy and they feel like they lose testosterone, and there is some loss of that, and they feel depleted. They also they get a huge spike in prolactin. And the prolactin then has them feeling tired, hard to get an erection again. They go into a refractory period. And then there's the more like indigenous shaman. I always joke, like the shamanic point of view is like, ejaculate and throw a party. It's life force. It's life. Like, let it flow through your body. And I think we each individually have to find what's right for us in the time period that we're in. Do we know what our biochemistry looks like that we can go, you know what, my testosterone's low. Maybe I'm in a period now of practicing more of the Taoist point of view so that I'm reserving my jing and my chi, and I'm going to take some deer antler, and then that goes back up. And now I'm in a period where I might ejaculate more to keep my prostate healthy.
Interesting.
I like that last one. I like that last one the best.
Well, I like that there's so many people that are so matter of fact of one or the other or whatnot. And I think you nailed it perfectly, because I can tell, like, I'm different than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where what I like is evolving. What I'm attracted to is evolving.
So do you have guesses on, you've already think you're our guest, Chris. Have you guessed
I
our
was
guest?
just going to say, I think, Ryan, you might be leaning more towards sexual.
Right.
But I think you have flavors of everything. So you may be a sexual shapeshifter. The sexual shapeshifter is the one with, it has usually a high drive. And an appetite for sex, and really likes what we think of as sex in our culture: nudity, getting into the orgasm. Things feel right. You have sex to relieve stress. When you feel stressed, then sex can be a way to relieve it. Yep. That would be maybe my take.
I'll have to take the test, but I think I can play all of those roles. Typically. So I think you nailed it on the end there. But the
shapeshifter.
We'll see. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I'll take the test though. We'll confirm. Jaiya, where can everybody keep up with everything you got going on, learning more, and all the good stuff?
Well, Jaiya.love is my website. You can go to eroticbreakthrough.com, and that is our website to take the quiz and all those fun things. I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes. And then my book is anywhere books are sold.
Yes, we'll have all that in the show notes. You can find it on Amazon and her website. And we really appreciate you coming on, Jaiya. It's been enlightening. I feel like we could talk for hours about this because we don't talk about it enough. So thank you so much for coming.
Well, pun intended there. I love coming. Thank you so much for having me.
I gave you a layup. That was intent was there. So any final words, Chris?
Yeah, I want to encourage anyone, go check out the Netflix Sex, Love, and Goop. That really opened my mind. It was actually after one of my first psychedelic experiences. And I don't know if I would have received the show the same had I not had that experience, especially talking energy and love and whatnot, but completely fascinating, blew my mind. Like when you were making people orgasm, not touching each other, I was like, all right, dude, there's levels to this. I don't know anything. I know what American Pie taught me, like in Maxim magazine, right? Cosmo. So I highly encourage everyone, super enlightening, super interesting. Definitely check it out.
Thank you so much, Jaiya. We love your vibe.
Thank you.
Hey guys, you're to find us. We're all over Instagram. Chris Broby Hansen, Ryan Alford is the best way to learn more about us. Got a lot more on our social platforms coming out for Vibe Science. We'll see you next time. The content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe.